That's a nice backdrop.
Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Let me shoot. Get rid of this.
Okay, so this was just an historic signing between, and look at the camera, not me.
Okay.
Okay, so this was an historic signing between two fire districts in Pontchartrain County. Was there ever a time, like, has this ever happened in the past before? Is this a brand new thing in your two histories?
During our tenures, yes. I know that in the past, when Fire District 2 was first formed, they formed the fire district and they had a taxing source and they had no stations. And I know that they took the initial funds that they got from their tax base and contracted with Ione Fire Department. And I imagine that had to have been the district was formed in 1967, so probably the latter part of the 60s into the 70s, and then Fire District 2 started to build stations and acquire equipment. But since then, I don't think that there has been an agreement like this, but definitely not during our tenures.
Not for EMS for sure.
Do you recall anything for fire?
Well, I was contracted to the city of Newport for a couple years. That came to an end about 15 months ago. So.
But in this case, what you described was the assets weren't there in Fire District 2, right? And what you described is a pay for hire or a contract hire.
Right.
This situation sounds like it's something different though, right? Can you just describe in a nutshell what this is?
So we're consolidating efforts in order to bring the greatest amount in terms of efficiency for medical care across not just the center part of the county, but the whole county. And we're doing it in a fashion that reduces response times, reduces expenses significantly for District 2. And it will decrease my response times throughout District 4 as a whole by more than half. So so we ran two levies trying to get the communities to pay for our EMS cost. And we missed it by just a few votes the first time. And we guess it was 2 votes. And the second time we missed probably by about, well, I don't know. It was a bigger spread. In my mind, I was trying to figure out a way to keep our EMS program alive in order to ensure that there was always EMS being provided in the county, in my part of the county, my part of the world. District 2 had stepped up and was providing paramedic care through southern Pontchartrain County, and they're doing a really good job, but being acutely aware of the fact that it's very expensive. When we lost our levy attempts to pay for EMS, and knowing that he was going to end up struggling and fighting in order to pay for the program, I thought, well, if we work together, we could probably save some money to deliver the level of service that we want to see delivered. That won't be just a benefit to District 4, but literally to everybody. And I came up with a plan. I asked for a lot more money than I got. Chief Haynes is a shrewd negotiator. But the reality is, District 2 is saving a lot of money by doing this while making sure that paramedic services are being provided through the whole county in a fashion that is frankly acceptable to us. And then at the same time for me, because I had to stop paying stipends to my volunteers to cover apparatus 24/7, our response times went from an average of about 10 minutes to 28 minutes. And that's just the way it was going to be. That's what my community was paying for. That's what they were going to get. They weren't happy with that. But, how do we make this so that we could kill multiple birds with one stone? We came up with a plan, and to Chief Haynes' credit, he was able to put it together. So,
because you said before that in your assessment, the majority of your constituents actually did want an EMS service out of Fire District 4.
Correct. Yeah. So our EMS service, the majority, both times that we ran levy requests last year, more than 50% voted yes. There's a handful of different reasons why the people that said no, and I get it. no one wants to pay more taxes than they have to. Um, Waiting 45 minutes to an hour for an ambulance to show up in a life-threatening situation, though, to me, I couldn't stress enough to people that the value of saying yes to that levy. Um, but if you don't ever have to deal with an ambulance, if you've never needed an ambulance, you're never going to know that you need it. So I suspect that a lot of the people that said yes were people that recognized that, hey, yeah, this is an essential function we need to keep in our community. And once it was gone, you know, some people were unhappy, and there was nothing I could do about it.
And the 45 minutes to an hour is, for instance, for someone to respond from this end of the county.
So my license as a BLS ambulance transport in rural Washington allows for us to take 45 minutes to get to a call. With that said, because I stopped having people at my fire station 24/7, the call comes across the pager, people jump into their vehicles, they drive to the fire station, they jump out of that, they run inside the station, they put on the appropriate clothing for the type of call that we're being dispatched to, they jump on the apparatus, and then they drive to the call. And on average, that was taking us 28 minutes. Whereas when we had people at the station 24/7, they were walking from one room of the fire station into the apparatus bay, jumping on the truck and going, and response times were relatively quick, even though we're a very rural setting. I couldn't afford to do that anymore on just fire tax. And it was unfair to our suppression side for me to keep robbing from paying for equipment for suppression to pay for the 80% of what our call load is, which is EMS. And so we wound it down and made it so that we could provide services and assist the crews from District 2 that were going. And I got out of the way for District 2 to be able to capture as much of that billing as possible too. So
This is going to be a cost saving measure for Fire District 2. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, in December of 2023, we took over South County ALS operations after the failure of Ponderay paramedics. And we immediately understood that we were going to be in a very precarious juxtaposition with respect to revenue, because we understand how revenue is drawn out, and we understood that we could do one car, but a lot of times that one ambulance would be on interfacility transfers, or just one paramedic unit in South County is truly not adequate. Initially, we staffed up 2, and then found out almost immediately that payroll was going to suffocate us, and it was going to be prohibitive to do that. So then we pulled back and it was primarily his response area, we pulled back to really cover the center, the density of the population, and to cover the hospital, to make sure the hospital is moving the patients out accordingly. They have a very small ER room, and if they get backed up, the whole system, the whole county backs up. So those interfacility transfers almost have to take priority over 911, even though your ALS license is really for 911. But if you don't have a hospital to put those 911 patients into, then basically the system begins to eat on itself. It begins to collapse on its face. So we kind of pulled our second unit back because of payroll, and then Chief Weber came to me with a proposal. Now, initially, my reaction was that I'm going to pay you for services to provide services in your community. On its face, initially, there was a lot of skepticism on my part, of course, on my commissioner's part, because that initially didn't echo well. It didn't echo well in our echo chamber, right? But really, when you sat back and thought about it pragmatically, you understood that it was a very good proposition, and it worked well. And the psychological factor was overcoming this is my area, this is my response zone, and that's the hardest for fire chiefs and for fire commissioners to get over. But once you do that and you begin to actually understand the dynamics of each other's position, and you begin to coalesce and work together, then you'll see that we're much better working as a team than we are separately. in a bunch of different areas. And I think that this is one of the best things ever. It allows us more capability in South County. It allows a better response time to his constituency, and by proxy, actually our constituency as well, because we hold the ALS license down there. So it was really a win-win situation all the way around for both of us. And then once that becomes a mindset, then there's no going back. That it's almost negligent not to work as a cohesive partnership with respect to one another. And we view it as something in Pomeroy County has been, in the past has been, you have your area, I have mine, and the two shall not cross. And if they do cross, it'll be through a mutual aid agreement. It'll definitely be through a, ask system and I need to, bring you over to help and everything else like that. And it just seems more innately natural to help people. Once we had the ALS license in South County and we were able to venture in everybody's area, it really they could tell us yes, not come, but primarily they wanted the paramedic service. It psychologically opened up a door for us, that we are our brother's keeper. We've always known that, and a partnership is much better than trying to do it. And let's just face it, with the reimbursements in EMS, with the potential horizon, what's on the horizon of revenue setbacks, and they're going to squeeze those numbers down even more. And with the regulations and with the inflation, those are all just a storm that has to be faced and weathered. That you can't turn your back to it. It's almost like the crisis that the fire departments have been looking at for over a decade now with volunteerism, where that's been disappearing, and we're going to see the same type of reimbursements with respect, because about 76% of our revenue stream with respect to reimbursements in the ambulance service is federal. And it's going to get higher, and those rates are not going to get higher. They're not going to match inflation. So we are facing a storm, and we're going to face it and weather it together as opposed to separately.
So you said that they're going to cut it back. Does that mean that there's some lobbying going on at
Yes,
the federal level?
Yeah, there's a lot of lobbying going on. There's lobbying going on from the Veterans Administration. They pay commercial rates. There's lobbying going on from the insurance companies. They pay commercial rates. And what they're trying to lobby is they're trying to lobby into the reimbursement rates that the federal government is giving. And those do not sustain an ambulance service. And if those entities are successful in their endeavor, you'll see ambulance services throughout the country fold almost overnight.
So you said 76%?
76% of our revenue, yes, is generated from federal insurance.
And what is your reimbursement rate on your bills?
On federal, we are receiving between 28 and 32% of our bill.
And private insurance or anything like that?
Private insurance pays the entire amount, or it pays nothing, right? Because they're either insured or they're not insured. And then you have to consider the indigent that will fall through the cracks. Even though you can get Medicaid in Washington State, you still have to follow through. You're just not anointed Medicaid. They'll give it to you initially, but if you don't do follow-up, simple signatures, and those are people generally that kind of fall through the cracks. Either they're extremely indigent, or they're respectfully, or they just not follow through type of people. So then you'll see them, on a transport, and that transport initially may cost us in just resources and personnel and operating costs. That transport may cost us anywhere between $1,500 and $2,500, and we receive nothing on it. And that's a burden that fire districts cannot sustain.
Well, no business can sustain that. Are those about the same numbers that you see?
Yeah, as a BLS entity, we were actually getting a little bit higher return on our billing, but it wasn't much. We were looking at 35% maybe. Yeah.
It's amazing to still be able to do it at all.
So for Fire District 4, our EMS program was costing upwards of $90,000, if not a little bit more. And I was literally only getting on returns on billing was only about $36,000 a year. One of the ways to help District 2 recoup their money, and I said it earlier, I got out of their way so that the transports were being handled almost exclusively by District 2. The only time we would transport is if District 2 didn't have an asset available. I have no idea how many times we've transported this year, but it's been a very small handful. District 2's done a tremendous job, not just with the one ambulance down there, but they'll back up the crew frequently when the crew out of Newport goes down to Spokane, which is a lot. It's a lot. And this just solidifies by putting a rock solid asset in the middle of the county that can be bounced up north when it's busy or bounced down south when it's busy. To have a response area bigger than Fire District 4, because it's not going to be just a Fire District 4 asset. It's a District 2 asset for their ALS program, and they'll be responding in conjunction with a paramedic in order to make sure that timely care is being delivered to people literally everywhere in the county. So,
And we're talking a very big response area between Chief Weber's area and ours. We have 1,140 square miles to cover, and we're doing it with 3 ambulances. Primarily, we'll be doing it with 3 ambulances with a couple in backup that we can draft out if we need to. The vast majority of the time, 3 is adequate, but a lot of times during the summer when our population density changes in the county, those numbers become very thin. So we're kind of front loading that, and we're going to be putting on more staff for the busy summer months.
Both of you were in the first responder world in firefighting before you came to Pontchartrain County and assumed the positions of chief or became chiefs. What do you think your reaction would have been if you would have been told that you're going to be dealing with 11,000 acres?
1,140 square miles.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
1,100 square.
So what's interesting about Chief Weber and I is we come from the same world. We came from the same world. We come from the Inland Empire, where we cut our teeth in the fire in Southern California. So honestly, our philosophies, our ideologies, our methodologies, a lot of times are exactly the same. We just serve a different constituency, and we kind of have to work with the people that pay our tax base and try to figure out their niche to utilize services. But he is much easier to work with than a lot of other fire chiefs that I've worked with, and it's really a blessing because we have this kind of the same thought process. And not only that, I'm not going to speak for him, but I was pretty shocked coming from the system that we ran in California to rural Washington State. I was extremely shocked by the lack of state support in rural eastern Washington State. I think central, it doesn't make a difference where in Washington State except for the west side. We have an agency in California called CAL FIRE, and they will fill our gigantic holes. They have the ability to do that. If they see there's a gigantic area it's not being covered, the state will step in and build a state station and spend that $7 to $10 million and staff that area so that there is some sort of coverage there. That does not exist in Washington State.
What would you have thought if someone had told you this is what you're going to be covering from now
on? So for me, I made the choice to work in a rural setting. This is my 3rd fire chief job. I was a fire chief in Montana. I was a fire chief in Idaho. When I came to the Northwest, I was surprised that the infrastructure for emergency response was so different and frankly inadequate, literally all across the Northwest until you get out to the coast. But you learn how to make it happen, and you rely on your neighbors, and it's the only way you can be successful, because there's not a fire district that I could think of until you get into probably Spokane City or Valley. They can take care of themselves probably 99% of the time by themselves, but not us. It's impossible. And as far as if I would have ever thought that there was a opportunity or the ability for multiple fire districts to work in a consolidated effort to be able to provide EMS, I'd say absolutely, because those doors are always open. It's just a matter of can something be put on the table that works to the benefit of everybody. And guarantee you they spent time trying to figure out where's the loophole, how's this going to burn us. And because when Palms was shutting down, I spent a year, this is a great idea, we could do this. Nope, this will make it not work. This is a great idea. And literally every week we ran into those. I would try to figure out a way to make a break. And I couldn't come up with a way to make this relationship and delivery of service break, which is the only reason why I presented it to Chief Haynes. And then I guarantee you guys did the same thing. How does this break? And my guess is because you're here now, you didn't find a way. So, yeah.
So this is a one-of-a-kind agreement and arrangement, and possibly a first-of-a-kind, depending on like what criteria you measure this by or judge this by. This is a cross-jurisdiction, cross-district cooperation. Is this a foreshadowing or testing of what how an EMS district could possibly operate?
I would say that on a micro scale it is. On a micro, because you see tax dollars working together to solve a problem. And I think efficiency is really the key. I don't think ever that tax dollars are going to figure it out, but efficiencies within the service itself are going to figure it out. And the ever changing dynamics of the financial revenue streams that come with this industry. This industry is the one thing that in the United States that is not funded by Congress. And not only that, it's prevalent in fire services now. We're the catch-all. If you don't need somebody with a gun, we're catching it all. And EMS is going to be constantly knocking at our door, and it's going to need to be addressed in fire agencies. We're not going to be the first, we're not going to be the last, but more and more fire agencies are going to have to do two things. They're going to have to master EMS because it's going to become the vast majority of their call volume. And two, they're going to have to learn how to collaborate with their neighbors and work collectively with the people around them, because the standalone fire districts that rely completely on volunteers, they are extinct but don't know it yet. They are struggling year after year because with the regulations that come out and the liabilities that are exposed to these fire districts and the inflationary type of environment that we're in, along with the apathetic or frustrated taxpayer that is constantly getting hammered, generally not by your local entity. Generally, it's by the state overall is the one that's proposing so much of the taxes. So this is going to be the new normal, I think, honestly. And if agencies do not begin to work together, shoulder to shoulder, I think that they're going to be facing some really critical decision making in the next 5 years.
Would you see it that way too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we've seen it on the private side already. How many 3 ambulances services out of Newport. The money's just not there, and without assistance, we kind of talked about that at some point. Well, if I'll use Palms as an example, if Palms had the ability to levy a tax to the community, even though it was a private entity or nonprofit, would that have helped them? It would have helped them, but they probably would have collapsed anyways, just because this is a very expensive service that we provide. I don't think we could make it less expensive by providing a lesser service. We could do BLS, but then quality of life for people would end up decreasing substantially. The number of fatalities would increase substantially. So, and that to me is not a viable option. So.
And I think that Chief Weber and I are on the same philosophy in that I'm not speaking for him personally, but I believe that healthcare is a right in the United States. We are a rich nation, and I honestly, truly believe that. And just because we live in a very rural setting does not mean that we do not deserve the same services. The constituency deserves the same services as Tacoma or Seattle or Olympia, or any of the other prosperous counties. So there has to be a tenacity with respect to your fire leadership, that truly believes in those ethos, to bring that service to your community, and really be serious about it, because we are fire protection districts. We do not have to, by law, be in the EMS world. We could literally turn our backs to it. But it's unconscionable to even think about doing something like that, especially with the call volume being that. So if we're going to do something, we need to master it, and we need to be the A players in it. And I think that our part of our collaborative efforts that we're having now is just making sure that we're providing the best services possible to the people of Pottaway County. And nobody knows when they drive across a line at District 2 or District 4 or Spofer or District 5, nobody recognizes those lines. And quite frankly, a lot of times when they show up, they don't even know what fire district you're from. Only a super informed citizen that has some background in it all will actually know that. And our goal is that there's such great continuity within the service delivery model that you don't need to know. And that's where we made great strides in North County in the last 8 years. We're very proud of what we've been able to achieve, and we think that this is we can duplicate this in other areas. It was actually Chief Weber that came up with this idea on how to really tackle this, and I really have to hand it to him. That he took almost an impossible situation and made it work for the both of us. It saved the taxpayers of District 2 a lot of money. It brought the level of service at District 4 much higher, so that he could, as a fire chief, go to bed at night and sleep peacefully, as opposed to not sleeping peacefully.
Very nicely put. Do you have anything regarding that? Anything in addition?
No, I'm excited. And I'm sure we're going to stumble on some stuff over the next few weeks, but we'll get it figured out in a hurry and make sure that service is not being hampered, that it only gets better. So, yeah, this is awesome.
It's the greatest thing when you're dealing with the level. He's got a good relationship with his elected body. I have a good relationship with my elected body, so there's no bureaucracy that is going to inhibit us from making very hard left and right turns. And because there is a financial stake in this, that you have to be flexible in business. You have to be able to make hard right and left hand turns. And when you have the fire chief, the chief executive officer of a public corporation working together, there's nothing that district cannot do in support of the troops on the ground that are making the difference on the 911 calls for service.
All right. Well, Chief Weber, Chief Haynes, thank you very much for your time. This is great.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah. You